Zürich-Hauptbahnhof in der nächsten Anschlüsse Intercity nach Bern, Lausanne, Genf, Flughafen, Gleis 17.
It's early morning in Zurich, Switzerland, 1917. The air is crisp, filled with a tension you can almost touch. Our scene unfolds at a discreetly crowded train station, under a sky painted in hues of pre-dawn blue. Among those present, one figure stands out, a man whose name will soon be etched into the annals of history, Vladimir Ilyich Ulyanov, better known as Lenin. Imagine, if you will, a train like no other, its cars sealed, a rolling fortress of ideas and revolution. Inside, Lenin and his companions, thinkers, dreamers, and revolutionaries, preparing to embark on a journey that will forever change the course of Russia. This isn't just a trip. It's a strategic move, a chess piece played by Germany to destabilize Russia and end its involvement in World War I. But for Lenin, it's the path to revolution. There's a quiet determination in the air as Lenin bids farewell to the few who've come to see him off. He doesn't just stand there. It's a symbol, a beacon of the change that's coming. His eyes, alight with the fire of conviction, are fixed on the future, on the heart of a nation teetering on the brink of monumental change. As the train slices through the Swiss landscape, leaving behind the years of Lenin's exile, we're not just witnesses to a journey across continents. We're on the cusp of revolution, a pivotal moment where destiny is in motion and history awaits its next chapter. This train, this moment, is where our story begins. With Lenin at his heart, this journey is not merely a passage through Europe, but a march towards an ideology that will redefine a nation. It is a leap into the unknown, a challenge to the old world order, and the dawn of a new era. Join me as we delve into Lenin's legacy, exploring the leadership that not only shaped the nation, but also left a mark on the fabric of history. This is Double Helix, Blueprint of Nations, and today, we're tracing the tracks of revolution. Welcome to Double Helix, Blueprint of Nations, Season 1, Episode 8, Architect of Revolution, Lenin's ruthless pursuit of a new world. Today, on Double Helix, as we navigate the intricate paths carved by leaders who've significantly impacted their nations, we arrive at a figure whose influence extends beyond national borders, reshaping the axis of global events. This episode spotlights Vladimir Lenin, a leader whose pivotal role in the 1917 October Revolution in Russia secures his position as one of the few individuals whose actions have, for better or worse, altered the course of human history. Though the great man theory of history has been challenged and largely set aside by contemporary historians, advocating that history is shaped by broader social forces and not merely by the actions of a few key individuals, the story of Lenin offers a compelling case for reconsideration. His leadership not only led to the establishment of the first communist state, but also ignited a flame that would spread across nations, inspiring revolutions, shaping ideologies, and altering the geopolitical landscape of the 20th century. In today's episode, we delve into Lenin's life, from his early years and the development of his revolutionary ideas to his leadership during the October Revolution and the establishment of the Soviet Union. We'll explore the strategies he employed, the challenges he faced, and the impact of his policies both domestically and internationally. As we dissect the legacy of Vladimir Lenin, examining how his leadership has left a mark on the fabric of history. Whether viewed as a hero or a villain, his influence is undeniable, making him a prime candidate for the argument that, in certain moments of history, the actions of a single individual can indeed pivot the direction of human events. To truly grasp the enormity of Lenin's impact, it's essential to understand the Russia into which he was born, a realm of vast disparities and simmering discontent. Imagine an empire stretching over 22 million square kilometers, a mosaic of languages, religions, and cultures, all under the iron fist of the Tsar. At the top of this hierarchical society sat the ruling class, a blend of nobility and monarchy, living in opulent luxury, seemingly oblivious to the suffering of their subjects. In 1870, in the provincial city of Simbirsk, a child named Vladimir Ilyich Ulyanov was born into this complex tapestry. His parents were well educated. His father was an inspector of schools, embodying the enlightened Russian bourgeoisie ideals. Lenin's family background, imbued with education and a sense of civic duty, played a crucial role in shaping his early worldview. Yet, it was the events unfolding across the Russian Empire that would ignite the spark of revolution within him. By the late 19th century, Russia was teetering on the edge of modernity and tradition. The Emancipation Reform of 1861 had freed millions of peasants from serfdom, but this liberation was nominal at best. The newly freed serfs found themselves trapped in a cycle of debt and poverty, tied to the land through a system of communal ownership that left little room for personal advancement. The countryside was ripe with discontent, a simmering cauldron of resentment waiting to boil over. Meanwhile, the Industrial Revolution had begun to transform the urban landscape of Russia. Cities like Moscow and St. Petersburg swell with peasants seeking work in the burgeoning factories. This rapid urbanization brought with it the harsh realities of industrial life: poor working conditions, meager wages, and overcrowded living quarters. The urban proletariat, a class that Marx and Engels had proclaimed as the gravediggers of capitalism, found fertile ground in Russia. The turn of the century saw the Russian Empire caught in a whirlwind of change and turmoil. The Russo-Japanese War of 1904 and 1905, a humiliating defeat for Russia, exposed the weaknesses of the Tsarist regime and lit the fuse of revolution. In 1905, the empire was rocked by a wave of protest, strikes, and uprisings, collectively known as the 1905 Revolution. Though the revolution was ultimately crushed, it served as a dress rehearsal for the events to come, leaving the populace with a taste of what collective action could potentially achieve. Lenin, watching these events unfold, was not a passive observer. His early years were marked by a growing awareness of the injustices surrounding him. The execution of his brother, Alexander, a member of a revolutionary group plotting the assassination of the Tsar Alexander III, was a turning point. This personal tragedy shattered the Ulyanov family's relative tranquility and propelled Lenin onto a path of revolutionary fervor. As Russia inched closer to the cataclysmic events of 1917, Lenin's voice began to emerge as a beacon for those disillusioned with the existing order. Through his writings and activities, he sought to channel the collective unrest of the peasantry and the proletariat into a unified revolutionary movement. His analysis of Russian society, deeply influenced by communist theory, painted a picture of a nation on the brink of a proletariat revolution, a revolution that he believed would not only transform Russia, but also inspire oppressed classes worldwide. In this prelude to revolution, Lenin's journey from a student of law to a leader of the Bolshevik faction of the Russian Social Democratic Labor Party encapsulates the transformative power of ideas. His writings, particularly those from his years in exile, lay the groundwork for the revolutionary upheaval to come. Lenin envisioned a Russia free from the yoke of autocracy and capitalism, a vision that would soon be put to the test amidst the flames of World War I and the crumbling edifice of the Russian Empire. World War I's turmoil was about to redraw Russia's future. Amidst this global turmoil, Lenin found himself in Switzerland, far from the Russian heartland, but closer than ever to the revolutionary aspirations he always had. In 1917, February, the February Revolution had just shaken Russia, leading to Tsar Nicholas II's abdication and the establishment of a provisional government. This was the moment Lenin had been waiting for. Yet, he was continents away from where history was being made. The German High Command saw an opportunity in Lenin's eagerness to return to Russia. They calculated that his revolutionary fervor would further destabilize Russia, withdrawing it from the Eastern Front and allowing Germany to concentrate its forces in the West during World War I. Thus, in a move as controversial as it was consequential, they facilitated Lenin's return in a sealed train, hoping he would be the catalyst for Russia's exit from the war. Lenin's journey back to Russia in April 1917 was fraught with danger and cloaked in secrecy. Traveling through enemy territory, Lenin and his fellow revolutionaries were effectively human cargo in a geopolitical gamble. The train, sealed to prevent any contact with the war-torn lands it passed through, became a symbol of Lenin's unyielding commitment to revolution. This journey was not merely a physical transition from exile to homeland, but a metaphorical passage from preparation of revolution to its execution. Upon arriving at Finland Station in Petrograd, the new name for St. Petersburg, Lenin was greeted not just by crowds of supporters, but by the tangible tension of a nation on the brink of further upheaval. His return marked the beginning of a new phase in the Russian Revolution, one that would see him take center stage in the fight for power. Lenin wasted no time in making his intentions clear. Shortly after his return, he presented the April Thesis, a series of directives that would become the blueprint for the Bolshevik Revolution, calling for an immediate end to the war, the transfer of land to the peasantry, and all power to the Soviets, or assemblies. Lenin's proposals were radical, even to many within his own party. Yet, they struck a chord with the war-weary, land-hungry, and power-starved masses. The theses were a gamble, proposing a path that diverged sharply from the provisional government's more conservative approach. Lenin's insistence on the Soviets, councils of workers and soldiers, deputies that had sprung up across Russia as the true representatives of the people's will, set the stage for the dual power struggle that would refine Russian politics in the months to come. The period between Lenin's return and the October Revolution was one of intense political maneuvering, public agitation, and preparation for an armed uprising. Lenin, understanding the need for both ideological leadership and practical action, worked tirelessly to consolidate Bolshevik support within the Soviets, argue for a socialist program, and plan for the overthrow of the provisional government. When the provisional government was toppled in October 1917, or November by the Gregorian calendar, it was a testament to Lenin's leadership and the Bolsheviks' ability to align their revolutionary agenda with the desires of the masses. The storming of the Winter Palace and the subsequent seizure of power were not just military achievements, but the culmination of months of political strategy and ideological warfare, led by Lenin. The lore surrounding the storming of the Winter Palace, immortalized in the annals of communist legend, often evokes images of a dramatic, violent confrontation. However, the reality was far less theatrical. marked instead by a quasi-peaceful surrender, a symbolic rather than bloody battle. This event, somewhat anticlimactic in its execution, nonetheless symbolized the monumental shift from imperial to Bolshevik rule. The looted treasures of the Tsar, long symbols of opulence and autocracy, were turned over to the state, heralding the dawn of a new era where all wealth was to be held in common under the aegis of the state, a state that increasingly came to reflect the will and the vision of Vladimir Lenin. Lenin, the architect of this seismic shift, was no conventional warrior. He wielded neither sword nor gun with particular prowess. Instead, his weapons were his words, his indomitable spirit, and his unyielding commitment to the cause of revolution. His pen, more potent than any rifle, crafted the narratives and the strategies that would dismantle an empire and conceive a state. Lenin's personal charisma and leadership galvanized his followers, imbuing the Bolshevik movement with a sense of purpose and direction that proved unstoppable. Remarkably, Lenin's path to the forefront of Russian politics was littered with obstacles and marked by periods of exile. Spending much of his adult life outside of Russia, he honed his ideological stance and strategic approach far from the land he sought to transform. Fate, it seemed, had a peculiar way of sparing him, through narrow escapes and missed captures, preserving him for a moment in history that seemed tailor-made for his return. The serendipity of Lenin's ascent to power speaks volumes about the man and the myth he would become. Here was a leader who, despite physical absence from the country for extended periods, remained connected to its political heartbeat. His return to Russia in 1917 was not just a physical crossing of borders, it was the culmination of years of ideological preparation, an insertion into the heart of a nation in the midst of change. The October Revolution thrust Lenin and the Bolsheviks into the forefront of Russian politics, but the struggle was far from over. The new Soviet government faced immediate challenges, from the ongoing war with Germany to the internal dissent and the daunting task of implementing the socialist policies Lenin had long advocated for. Under Lenin's leadership, the Bolsheviks moved quickly to consolidate power. They negotiated an end to Russia's involvement in World War I through the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, embarked on a sweeping program of nationalization, and began the process of building a socialist state. Yet, these early steps were also marked by the onset of the Civil War, a brutal conflict that would test Lenin's resolve and the durability of the Bolshevik Revolution. Lenin's return to Russia and the months leading up to the October Revolution were a period of intense activity, ideological struggle, and strategic brilliance. His leadership during this critical phase not only shaped the course of the revolution, but also set the foundations for his future rule. The journey from a seal train to the halls of power was fraught with challenges, but for Lenin, it was the realization of a lifetime dedicated to the cause of revolution. Following the euphoria of revolution and the initial steps to establish a socialist government, Lenin faced the colossal task of governing a vast, war-torn country. The ideals that propelled the Bolsheviks to power soon collided with the harsh realities of civil unrest, foreign intervention, and economic collapse. Lenin's response to these challenges revealed a leader willing to employ ruthless tactics in the pursuit of his vision. The introduction of War Communism was Lenin's attempt to control the economy and support the Red Army during the Russian Civil War. This policy entailed the nationalization of industries and the forced requisitioning of grain from peasants. While perhaps intended as temporary measures, they had devastating effects on Russia's already fragile economy, leading to widespread famine and hardship amongst the peasantry, who bore the brunt of these policies. Concurrently, Lenin authorized the Red Terror, a campaign of political repression aimed at eliminating opposition and dissent within the newly formed Soviet state. The Cheka, Bolshevik Russia's secret police, became the instrument of this terror, conducting mass arrests, executions, and persecution of perceived enemies of the state, including former Tsarist officers, clergy, and even fellow socialists and anarchists who challenged Bolshevik authority. Lenin's ruthlessness was further demonstrated in his response to internal rebellions. The Kronstadt Rebellion of 1921, led by disillusioned sailors and soldiers who had once been staunch Bolshevik supporters, was particularly telling. The rebels, demanding an end to war communism and greater political freedom, represented a significant challenge to Bolshevik authority. Lenin ordered a swift and brutal suppression of the uprising, resulting in thousands of deaths and further repression of political freedoms. This period also saw the suppression of the Tambov Rebellion, a peasant uprising provoked by harsh requisitioning policies under war communism. Lenin's directive to quell the rebellion was merciless, involving the use of chemical weapons, hostage-taking, and concentration camps, underscoring his willingness to use extreme measures against any form of dissent. Faced with economic disaster and widespread unrest, Lenin introduced the New Economic Policy, or the NEP, in 1921, a significant shift from the strictures of war communism. The NEP allowed for a limited revival of private enterprise and agriculture, aiming to stabilize the economy and quell social unrest. While this policy was seen as a pragmatic step back from socialist ideas, it also highlighted Lenin's adaptability in governance and his desperate need to hang on to power. However, the NEP's introduction was not without its critics, both within the Bolshevik Party and among the broader population, who saw it as a betrayal of the revolution's goals. By 1922, Lenin's vision of a socialist federation was realized with the formation of the Soviet Union. Yet, the methods by which he secured this legacy, through suppression, violence, and authoritarian control, left deep scars in the Soviet psyche and sowed the seeds for future conflicts within the Communist Party and the state. In the years following the October Revolution, Vladimir Lenin's health began to deteriorate significantly. The stress of leading a nascent government through a civil war, coupled with an assassination attempt in August 1918 that left him severely wounded, took a toll on his well-being. By 1922, Lenin suffered a series of strokes that progressively diminished his ability to lead and ultimately removed him from the political arena. Despite his declining health, Lenin remained deeply concerned with the direction of the Soviet government and the internal dynamics of the Communist Party. In his final writings, known as his Testament, Lenin expressed worries over the concentration of power and the rise of Joseph Stalin and Leon Trotsky, warning of the potential danger Stalin posed to the party and to the socialist project. History will prove him right. These concerns, however, were not fully addressed, setting the stage for future power struggles within the Communist Party and untold misery for millions of Russians. Vladimir Lenin died on January 21st, 1924, at the age of 53, in his estate in Gorky, just outside Moscow. The cause of death was attributed to the complications from the strokes he had suffered. His passing marked the end of an era and plunged the Soviet Union into a period of mourning and uncertainty. The news of Lenin's death was met with an outpouring of grief from across the Soviet state, with millions of people paying their respects as his body laid in state in Moscow's House of the Unions. In the days following his death, the Soviet government decided to embalm Lenin's body and place it on permanent display in a mausoleum in Red Square in Moscow. This decision was controversial, even among some of the Communist Party, but it turned Lenin's resting place into a site of pilgrimage, symbolizing his enduring presence in the Soviet state. The Lenin Mausoleum became a potent symbol of the Soviet regime, a physical manifestation of Lenin's legacy that continues to attract visitors to this very day. The death of Lenin set off a power struggle within the Communist Party, just as he predicted, particularly between Joseph Stalin and Leon Trotsky. The ideological and practical questions Lenin left unanswered in his testament, including concerns over the centralization of power and the direction of the socialist project, became the battleground for this struggle. Stalin, through political maneuvering and consolidation of power within the party, eventually emerged as the undisputed leader of the Soviet Union, leading it down a path that would diverge significantly from Lenin's vision in many respects. Lenin's death marked not only the loss of the Soviet Union's founding father, but also the beginning of a new chapter in its history, one that would see the transformation of the USSR under Stalin's rule. The events surrounding Lenin's death and the subsequent preservation of his body reflect the complex relationship between the leader and the led, between the person and the symbol. Lenin's final years, his death, and the immediate aftermath revealed the challenges of succession and the preservation of legacy within the revolutionary movement, highlighting the personal and political tensions that can shape the future of nations. Lenin's leadership during the tumultuous early years of Soviet rule reveal a complex figure, visionary yet ruthless, pragmatic yet ideologically driven. His actions during this period, marked by severe repression and the suppression of dissent, invite a critical examination of the cost of revolution and the ethical implications of wielding power in the pursuit of an ideal. While Lenin's legacy is inextricably linked to the founding of the Soviet Union, it is also marred by the authoritarian methods he employed, methods that would continue to define Soviet politics for decades to come. The legacy of Vladimir Lenin, a figure both revered and reviled, continues to cast a long shadow over Russia, influencing his national psyche and perceptions of leadership. The complexities of Lenin's rule, marked by revolutionary zeal, ruthless suppression, and pragmatic governance, had left an indelible mark on how leadership is viewed in Russia, shaping the narrative of power, authority, and resistance. Lenin's impact on Russia is a study of contradictions. On the one hand, he is celebrated as the architect of the Soviet Union, a visionary leader who overthrew an oppressive regime and sought to establish a society based on social principles. Monuments and memorials dedicated to Lenin still dot the landscape, and his mausoleum remains a site of pilgrimage for many. This reverence is partly rooted in a collective memory of Lenin as a liberator, a leader who empowered the masses and championed the cause of the working class. On the other hand, the authoritarian methods Lenin employed, his role in initiating the Red Terror, suppressing uprisings, and establishing a regime that would later be marked by extensive surveillance, political purges, and repression, have led to a more critical reassessment of his legacy. For some Russians, Lenin symbolizes the loss of individual freedoms in the pursuit of collective ideals, a reminder of the personal cost exacted by revolutionary change. Lenin's leadership style, characterized by both its ideological fervor and its authoritarian undertones, has profoundly influenced the Russian perception of leadership. The centralization of power and the suppression of dissent under Lenin set precedents for governance in the Soviet Union, emphasizing the role of the leader not just as a political figure, but as an embodiment of the state's power and authority. This model of leadership, where the ends justify the means and where the leader's vision is paramount, has resonated throughout Russian history, influencing how leadership is exercised and perceived in contemporary Russia. The strongman image, a leader who is decisive, unyielding, and singularly focused on the nation's unity and progress, even at the expense of individual liberties and lives, can trace its roots back to Lenin and the early Soviet period. Lenin's actions and policies during his rule contributed to shaping a national psyche characterized by a complex relationship with authority, a legacy of enduring state control over individual lives, and a deep-seated skepticism towards political change. The centralization of power in the hands of the state, a hallmark of Lenin's governance, fostered a sense of collective identity over individual autonomy, a legacy that continues to influence Russian society. Moreover, the idealism and sacrifice embedded in the narrative of the Bolshevik Revolution, with Lenin at its helm, have instilled a sense of pride in Russia's ability to endure hardship and effect monumental change. Yet, the same narrative also serves as a cautionary tale about the cost of revolution and the dark turns of utopian visions when implemented with an iron fist. As Russia navigates its place in the 21st century, the legacy of Lenin remains a contentious and complex topic. His influence on the Russian psyche and leadership cannot be understated. It permeates political discourse, historical interpretation, and national identity. For better or worse, Lenin's vision and methods of achieving it have left a lasting imprint on how Russians conceive of power, leadership, and the role of the individual in the state's grand narrative. In contemporary Russia, where the echoes of the Soviet past still resonate, understanding Lenin's legacy is crucial for comprehending the country's political culture, its leaders' authoritarian tendencies, and the people's enduring resilience and capacity for change. Vladimir Lenin's role in shaping Russia goes beyond his contributions to political theory or his actions during the Bolshevik Revolution. His legacy is woven into the fabric of the Russian national psyche, influencing perceptions of leadership, authority, and the individual's place within the collective narrative of the state. As Russia continues to evolve, the figure of Lenin serves as a mirror, reflecting the nation's historical complexities, its struggles with power and identity, and its ongoing quest to define its future. As we draw our exploration of Lenin's complex legacy to a close, it's crucial to reflect on the multifaceted nature of his impact on Russia and on the broader world. Lenin was undoubtedly a figure of immense consequence, a zealot whose life was inextricably intertwined with the cause of revolution. His dedication to the establishment of a socialist state was unwavering, driven by a vision that was both utopian in aspiration and dogmatic in execution. Yet, the single-minded pursuit, marked by a ruthless strategy to achieve his ends, led to significant repercussions for Russia and indeed for much of the 20th century. Lenin's legacy is a testament to the power of conviction and the dangers inherent in pursuing a cause with unyielding zeal. While he succeeded in overthrowing an oppressive regime, the methods he employed and the system he helped establish would lead to widespread suffering. The policies enacted under his leadership, from War Communism to the Red Terror, not only inflicted misery upon the Russian people, but also set a precedent for future leaders who would invoke Lenin's name to justify their own authoritarian regimes. The aftermath of Lenin's revolution did not confine itself to the borders of the Soviet Union. It sent ripples across the globe, inspiring and influencing leaders and movements that would, in their own times and contexts, replicate the tragedy of his revolution. Figures like Pol Pot, Stalin, and Mao Zedong, and the leadership of North Korea, each, in their own way, looked to Lenin's example, seeing it as a blueprint for their revolutions. Unfortunately, these revolutions too often replicated the original's flaws, leading to immense human suffering. It is a poignant reflection that Lenin's dream, steeped in the desire for equality and justice, would morph into nightmares under his successors and ideological kin across different nations. His revolution and the ideals it championed indeed altered the world, leaving an incredible mark on the fabric of history. The effects of his actions and the movements they spurred continue to resonate, reminding us of the profound impact, both transformative and tragic, that a single individual's unwavering belief can have on the course of human events. In contemplating Lenin's enduring influence, we are faced with the complex legacy of a man whose vision for a better world was pursued with a fervor that ultimately contributed to the very injustices he sought to eradicate. As we move forward, the story of Lenin and his revolution serves as a powerful reminder of the dual nature of zealotry. It can both inspire change and precipitate despair. It challenges us to reflect on the cost of revolution and the price of ideals when they are pursued without heed to the consequences on the human condition. This reflection on Lenin's legacy invites us to consider the intricate dance between ideology and reality, between the dreams for a better society and the means by which we strive to achieve them. It underscores the importance of tempering passion with compassion, of aligning vision with humanity, to ensure that in our pursuit of change, we do not lose sight of the very people for whom change is sought. As we close the chapter on Lenin and ponder the echoes of his revolution that still reverberate around us, I want to thank you for joining us on this journey through the corridors of history, exploring the legacies that have shaped the world we inhabit. Your engagement, curiosity, and reflections enrich our exploration of these monumental figures. I invite you to stay connected with us beyond this episode. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter to dive deeper into the stories of leadership that have defined nations. Have questions or insights you'd like to share? Email us. Your perspectives are the lifeblood of this journey throughout history. And if you've been moved by this episode, intrigued, or inspired, please share it. Follow us on your preferred podcast platform and leave a review. Your support helps us unravel more stories, reaching minds and hearts eager to understand the complexity of our shared past. Now, as the shadow of Lenin's legacy lingers, we turn our gaze to a figure whose leadership during one of history's darkest hours would come to define the spirit of a nation. Next time on Double Helix, Blueprint of Nations, we delve into the life of Winston Churchill, a man whose words rallied a country, whose decisions shaped the outcome of a global conflict, and whose legacy continues to inspire and provoke debate. We'll begin our next episode on the windswept beaches of Dunkirk, 1940, a moment teetering on the brink of despair and defiance. It's here, amidst the chaos and the clamor of a retreat, that Churchill's voice emerged, not just as Prime Minister of Britain, but as a beacon of resilience and hope for the world. "We shall fight on the beaches," he declared, in what would become one of the most rousing speeches of the 20th century, encapsulating the indomitable spirit of a leader determined to steer his nation through its darkest hours. Join us as we explore the leadership legacy of Winston Churchill, examining the man behind the myth, the decisions that defined his tenure, and the influence he wielded on the English nation and beyond. It's a tale of courage, controversy, and unwavering conviction. A story that reminds us of the power of leadership to inspire, to transform, and to endure. Until then, keep seeking the stories that challenge, the stories that illuminate, and the legacies that shape our world.